Those Who Serve on WBBZ-TV 5 is presented by Alpha Stim, relieving anxiety, depression, and pain. More information at alpha-stim.com. And with generous support from Danny Irwin.
Hello, my name is Terry McGuire, host of Those Who Serve. Today we have a very special guest, and his name is Frank E. Cias. Frank is a former POW who spent over 5.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton prison. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Frank E. Cias.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you here today.
I appreciate it.
And you have some amazing stories to tell as a former POW. And I first met you at the VA many, many moons ago, and you were there with a lot of our mainly World War II veterans that, believe it or not, some are still with us today. And we had an earlier interview with a former POW, Mr. Butowski, and he is over 100 years old now, so God bless him. And we look for many more years for you to be around.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But, you know, just talking about your experience as a Vietnam era POW is a different experience altogether than our World War II veterans. But tell us a little bit about yourself growing up on the east side of Buffalo in the early 60s. What was that like?
Well, it was a happy time of my life. I was growing up. My father owned a bar business, and I learned the bar business trade, and he worked with me side by side throughout this experience. And I was going to high school when I was tending bar, and that was the high school's name is Burgard Vocational High School, and I was taking up automobile mechanics, and I graduated from there in 1965, and I continued to help my father, and then a couple of my buddies came by to visit me while I was working the bar, and they asked me if I was interested in joining the Marines. And I says, why? And he's, so they says, we're going to join. And they were cousins. So I says, sure. I says, I have to go upstairs and speak with my parents first to let them know what I'm going to be doing. So I went upstairs, and of course my mother said no. And my father says, you do what you want. And I had a feeling he was setting me free, and I went and joined the Marines.
Now, this was a time where you were developing the draft and whatnot. Did you feel like this was a way to, you know, take charge of your life and say, hey, before they draft me, I have a chance to go to where I want to go? Was that ever in your mind at all?
Absolutely, Terry, because that is one of my main motives. I was looking for a nudge or a push to go do it, but I thought of, to join the Marines, I can get what I want and do what I want. And for how long that would work, I'd be happy, but I'd get some education out of it. So I joined the Marines to get schooling in aviation. And my other friends, the cousins, they went without any guarantee. They ended up joining to be infantry.
Wow.
So I ended up joined the Marines after boot camp. They went to the infantry, and I went to Memphis, Tennessee to learn aviation.
And because you had that background with some mechanical vocational training, was that one of the things that they said, hey, this is where Frank should be, somewhere in a mechanical world, and did it progress from there? And tell us a little bit about your training.
You said that perfectly, Terry. I wanted to learn about aviation, but I also had an itch to try and fly helicopters. I figured perhaps there could be a way to get into some type of pilot flying or training. And at that point, I did my schooling, and what developed next was the schooling come to a graduation day, and then we wanted to continue to stay in the States to learn more schooling, and we wanted to learn about helicopters. the schooling I received first was for the Phantom on the J-82 engines that they used to fly that airplane. So they told us we cannot get extra education. The government, it was asking for all signed up service people to come to Vietnam because they're short on people. So they told us that they would remember us, and when it comes time, when that class opened up, they could pull us out of there and put us into school. So I ended up getting my orders after the schooling, and it turned out to be for Vietnam, of course. Like I just said, they wanted men. So my whole class and I went to Vietnam. And I was headed to Paris Island, and there we got on a bus, and it took us right to the island, over the bridge to the island, I should say, and then we disembarked. At the beginning, it was the beginning of hell, and we got off the bus, and I learned some new words that you could be called, and I got off the bus, and I put my 2 feet on the 2 feet that were painted on the ground, and they told us that it is going to be a nightmare for us to be Marines. And the next move, I got my first crew cut, haircut.
Yes, the initiation, yes.
Initiation on 10-4.
Right. And then following basic training, you went to some flight school type of training to learn different mechanical things or door gunner details, because I know you were officially listed as, I think, a door gunner for a period of time, and also a crew chief. So,
that is correct.
Yeah.
But what happens there, we had to, because you go to basic training, you have to go through infantry training. It's also a compulsory thing.
Well, it's a Marine Corps thing, right? Everybody's an infantryman first, and then you go separate ways, yes.
So then when we finished up the infantry training, I was able to come home on leave, spend time with my family, and then I had to report to Memphis, Tennessee for the schooling for the fighter aircraft that I was programmed to learn about. I was also included in a new transition in my life where the fighter school I went to learn about ended up at a helo pad, chopper pad in Khe Han, South Vietnam. And what they told me back in the States, they would call me to go to school to learn about the helicopter. I was put right into the helicopter squadron to get OJT now.
OJT, meaning on-the-job training.
That is it, yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. So fast forward a little bit, next thing you know, you're on some very interesting missions. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the missions that you were actually on as a crew chief and a door gunner?
Absolutely. At the beginning when we got there, we had to go through a process of learning the chopper and everything. And you had to go to gunner school, and then afterwards was you received your wings to start flying as a crew chief on helicopters. I had all sorts of resupply missions, picking up wounded Marines that were hurt in battle, and resupply missions. Mm-hmm. Now we also had a special mission that came up once in a while that would take us to another location away from our base. And I volunteered for this mission. And it was something my father always taught me at home, never to volunteer in the military.
Right.
Well,
no good deed goes unpunished, right?
Correct. I knew more than my father at this point, right? So we took the mission, and it was about 6 other guys, or 6 other crew chiefs with our birds. We went up to the Special Forces camp in Phu Bai. At this base, we were informed what they needed us to fly them were and what they needed us for to fly them. So we got informed that they had to do a mission to fly into Laos, the country of Laos, and they would call us when they needed to be extracted or removed from the country. So we got all our information. I was able to call home that night, and what they call a Mars station.
Yes.
And I called my parents and my family.
How cool is that?
Yes, it was. And I spoke to my mom, dad, and my brothers, and I told them I could not tell them what I was going to be doing or where I was at. part of the format. So we exchanged love and hugs and kisses over the phone. And then the next morning I went on my mission. And we were flying into Laos. And we had 6 helicopters with us. And the mission was about to put these men in where they wanted to be put in. And they were SOG teams.
And this is June 3rd, roughly June 3rd, 1967.
This is this is June 3rd, 1967.
By calling your parents, I think you probably had a sense that this was a really big deal coming up and that maybe it was good to reach out and communicate with them.
I did, and only in the mind frame of, it was the first time they could hear my voice since I left, prior to Christmas,
Wow.
And otherwise it was just strictly letters.
Right.
So I figured that it's a good morale booster for me and for them,
Sure.
So they could at least hear me in conversation.
Gotcha.
And in the future, it turned out to be the right thing to do, to make that call. So we dropped these guys into the mission in Laos, and we all returned to our base of security, and halfway through the day, they gave a call to us and asking to be removed. They ran into trouble. So we had to go back into Laos and try to extract them. So when we got in there, we lost like 3 choppers on the mission going in, and they were down in the LZ that they were trying to pick up those guys, the SOG team out of. So my pilot decided to come in and try and make a rescue, one more chopper. So we got in, no problems. We loaded up the chopper with, we had 10 ARVN soldiers, special soldiers, and we had a team of 3 Green Berets with us. And we loaded them aboard our chopper. Everything was going smooth. We didn't take no fire coming in. I'm wondering what the heck's going on here. So we get clearance to take off. So we loaded up. We're starting to take off. And we ran into a trap. They were waiting for us not to shoot at us coming into the LZ, but to take us out, carrying out loaded troops on the helicopter. I was shot down. I crashed in their village, their army's village, and they were still there, and they were shooting at us throughout the whole situation. I stopped the bullet in my side. I still have it in me today. I lost my gunner, my pilot and co-pilot. We lost 2 Special Forces guys. One escaped later in the story. And Sergeant Dexter, who was my leader of the SOG team, made a decision to get out of the chopper and take off. Well, we got away for 2 days. And on the second day, we were captured by the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese. And they captured us, tied us up, and took us back to a camp that they had, a soldier camp. And there, they informed us that we're going to be prisoners of war and taken to Hanoi, North Vietnam. I thought that was a joke at the point, but according to them, they were serious about it. They fed us a good meal that night. We had dinner actually with some important people, because you could tell by the insignia on their collars. Anything with gold is an important person, Vietnamese, North Vietnamese. So afterwards, we went to sleep that night. We woke up, and they decided to tie us up, and we were going to get on a move and go to Hanoi. Before we got out, that second day, they did not take us out right away. We went up into the mountains. All the people they captured from the helicopter, and they cleared out the whole village. And we went up into the mountains in a cave. In this cave, they gave us a cigarette, and it's always their custom to give you 1 cigarette. So we were smoking it, and Dexter and I are talking about what's going on here, trying to figure out, this doesn't seem to be a normal thing to do. Well, it was dark already, and all of a sudden, we didn't hear anything coming but explosions. And we were in this cave that had a waterfalls coming down at the entrance. That's how we walked into the cave, through the water to get into the cave. So now, it was breathtaking, scaring everything out of us, didn't know. And all I looked out the cave window, everything was white from the explosions of the bombs. And boulders flying in the air and then blocking off the entrance to the slight part of the cave.
Wow.
And
So if you're claustrophobic, this is not a good thing.
no, I mean, if you could die from that, claustrophobic on the spot, that would be it.
Wow.
I never experienced it. Dexter says put our heads down on our sitting in this position and keep our heads down. And when the noise stopped, Dexter says to me, B-52. And I go, oh, okay. Of course I know what that was. And then if I listened, you could hear it leaving the area. You can never hear a B-52 coming.
Right.
That's quiet. So when it was leaving the area after they did their drop,
Then you could hear them.
you could hear, and
Wow.
I looked at Dexter and I says, you're right.
So you survived a B-52 strike
Yeah,
on your way being led to your ultimate destination, Hanoi Hilton, along the way.
that is
Wow.
correct.
Unbelievable.
So that morning we went down, come out of there, and we went back to the camp, and then we were tied up with our boots hanging over our necks so we couldn't run,
Right.
and to keep that escape out of our minds because we couldn't survive without our
Your
boots.
feet would get chewed up in the jungle. With
Exactly.
everything that's on the ground.
And then they tied each one of us together in a chain gang. So if one run,
Right.
you can't go far.
Right.
So our next trip was up the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And it's a true story. If you, for those who know about the Ho Chi Minh Trail, it is steps carved up the mountain with railings to help people walk up the mountain. And it's the infiltration route for the North Vietnamese.
Main supply route.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So we walked that whole stretch, and I think we walked for through the Ho Chi Minh Trail and other venues that we got through to get to a truck stop in the mountains. And it turned out to be a place that we were going to get in a truck and then taken by truck to Hanoi. So we're heading north to North Vietnam, and what is going on is that we stop at villages where the interrogation places points that they selected for us. So I would go in through interrogation and face all kinds of questions and requests and all. And Dexter would do his interrogations on his own, with his own. And then after they were done with us, they would put us back into our house that we would stay. And then several days later, they would bring us back out and go through the same questions over and over again. I was never harmed at these questions, but I was threatened, And it says, in their words, harm can come to you if you do not answer my questions. So I often say this one sentence, that I am a perfect liar.
You've referenced that a few times, and
Yes.
yes. But
And
what does that mean to be a perfect liar?
Once you start a story, it's the same story over and over and over again, where nothing gets added or changed. So if I lived in Buffalo, New York, I lived in another city.
Good point. So they can trace you
Right.
and use that information against you.
But I had to use my head and allow that to come out of me one time. Then I told him I was lying, and it gave me clout. Oh, we're breaking him. So I told them Buffalo because I wasn't sure about the family and back in the States. I didn't have no knowledge about if that could be repercussion somehow. But I says, and then I thought of the letters that they thought about letting me write home, and I says, well, that'll give me,
So what was it like, you're coming in now to Hanoi Hilton and the in-processing. What was that like in your first couple of days there and subsequent days at Hanoi Hilton?
Today, I just wanted to chat with everybody about, there's a lot of stress that's going on in our lives right now and in the world, and how do we take back our power, take back our agency to de-stress during these times. One way I like to de-stress is, everyone knows I love to watch the Golden Girls and eat ice cream, so that's like my number one. But another way to do it, and is much more universal, much more communal, is music, listening to music. It is like the elixir for the soul, as one of my friends has said before. But music is really, really cathartic, and it can take you to spaces that take you to certain memories or take you to a place of calmness and relaxation, or a place that took, that may trigger something, not trigger in a bad way, but spark something to where, maybe in childhood or a happier time or a more relaxing time. For me, I have music for like when I'm really excited and I have to go and do a project. I might listen to something really hype and get me going. But when I'm stressing out and a little anxious, I might listen to something very kind of calming and maybe some water or some smooth jazz or something like that. But just something that can really kind of smooth me out a little bit so that I can, as I love to say, be the best versions of myself that day. Also, we can look at the other side of it. When I'm upset about something, I have music that I listen to that kind of like helps me release that, because sometimes we might not feel that we can release in terms of being upset or crying, but there's music that can help trigger that so that we can kind of get that out, leave it on the table, and then go on with the rest of our day. So I am so excited that you are here today with me with Mental Fitness Moment, and I hope this tip helps you today find the best version of yourself. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on our next episode of Those Who Serve.
Those Who Serve on WBBZ-TV 5 is presented by AlphaStim, relieving anxiety, depression, and pain. More information at alpha-stim.com. And with generous support from Danny Irwin.